Okay, now we're going to cover the cycle that most people are probably most familiar with, the hydrologic, also known as the water cycle. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain the steps and reservoir interactions in the hydrologic cycle. Apparently my dog doesn't like the hydrologic cycle. To accomplish this goal, we will describe the steps of the water cycle, identify the reservoirs, and explain the human impacts on the water cycle. So, the water cycle is powered by the sun. So we've got the sun, which beats down here on the water, causing evaporation. So that water gets evaporated, condenses in the clouds, gets rained back down as precipitation or snow. That then gets added back to the water, and that will continue as a cycle. We also have plants. Plants do something we call evapotranspiration. They take up water from the ground, then they transpire. It's plant breathing, so they release water back into the atmosphere, which then gets put back into clouds and moves around. We also have percolation over here in the corner and infiltration, and this is how water goes back through the ground and gets filtered as it heads back and recharges where our groundwater is and where our drinking water comes from. So the major reservoirs of the water cycle, the biggest one is the ocean. So the oceans account for 97% of the water, very large reservoir. All the rest of the world's water is accounted for only 3%, and of that 3%, 77% of it is in the ice caps, the glaciers, and the inland seas. So these are our two biggest reservoirs. The ocean, significantly bigger reservoir than those ice caps. Some of it is also as groundwater, and then the leftover is our atmosphere, soil moisture, and our lakes, and then a very small percentage in our rivers. So how can humans impact the water cycle? Cutting down trees decreases the ability of the plants to take up the groundwater and transpire it back out, that evapotranspiration. And we also have a habit of putting down these impervious surfaces, which prevents that water from percolating and recharging our groundwater. So if you see here, pervious allows the water to go through, versus the impervious, where the water just sits there on the surface and doesn't allow it to cycle back in through our water cycle. So we explain the steps and reservoir interactions in the hydrologic cycle. The water cycle is the movement of water as a liquid, a gas, or a solid through the various sources and sinks. Most of the Earth's water is stored in the oceans, so the largest sink of water is the ocean. And then the ice caps and groundwater are a much smaller reservoir, though still very important reservoir for the water.